Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanedhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanedhari Vallabha Girivanedhari Yasodarandana Prajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jabihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanedhari Baba Girivanedhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanedhari Vallabha Girivanedhari Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavatarya Satarya Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gauda Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sakoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki His Confounder Srila Prabhupada Ki Shishi Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Navadvip Dham Ki Jamuna Maya Ki Ganga Maya Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakta Devi Ki Shishi Radha Golokananda Ki Samaveda Bhaktarinda Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktarinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktarinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktarinda. So we're continuing our reading of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're at Adi Leela, chapter 10, text 43. This is the branches, the trunk, branches, and sub-branches of the Chaitanya tree. Text number 43. The 20th branch of the Chaitanya tree was Haridas Thakur. His character was wonderful. He used to chant the holy name of Krishna 300,000 times a day without fail. Purport. Certainly, the chanting of 300,000 holy names of the Lord is wonderful. No ordinary person can chant so many names, nor should one artificially imitate Haridas Thakur's behavior. It is essential, however, that everyone fulfill a specific vow to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, we have prescribed in our society that all our students must chant at least 16 rounds daily. Such chanting must be offenseless in order to be of high quality. Mechanical chanting is not as powerful as chanting of the holy name without offenses. It is stated in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Kanta, chapter 2, that Haridas Thakur was born in a village known as Budhana. But after some time came to live on the bank of the Ganges at Pulya, near Santipur. From the description of his chastisement by a Muslim magistrate, which is found in the 16th chapter of Adi Kanta of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, we can understand how humble and meek Haridas Thakur was and how he achieved the causeless mercy of the Lord. In the dreams performed by Lord Chaitanya, Haridas Thakur played the part. In the dramas performed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur played the part of a police chief while chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra in Benapole. He was personally tested by a Maya Devi herself. Haridas Thakur's passing away is described in the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 11th chapter. It is not definitely certain whether Sri Haridas Thakur appeared in the village named Budhihan, that is, in the district of Khulna. Formerly, this village was within the district of 24 Paganas within the Satashira division. So, Omaganda Timarandishya Ganajana Shilakaya Chakshumi Tamyanitajmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I think Monday was Haridas Thakur's, was it appearance day or disappearance? So Norma went over pretty much all the highlights. As Prabhupada mentioned, he's no ordinary person, nor can one chant these 300,000 names. And not just he did it every single day. This just wasn't a part-time thing for him. This was daily, which is important. The Prabhupada brings out there that one is essential that everyone fulfill a specific vow. And 16 is actually is it prescribed by Srila Prabhupada. It was kind of negotiated actually in the beginning the devotees from in 26 Second Avenue. Actually, the standard is 64 rounds a day. But even Bhaktisiddhanta, that was his standard, that when there were times when people would go out and do service, whether it was Harinam, Sankirtan, or they'd do specific things that required them to, maybe with festivals or other things of preaching, that it was adjusted, but that for a particular period of time that he adjusted it. But the standard was 64, and Lord Chaitanya would not eat in anybody's house. He would not accept any offering unless you're chanting 64 rounds a day. This was the standard at this time. So even after Jagai Madhai, after Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda gave him their mercy, they chanted 200,000 a day, every single day, rounds a day. They approached Nityananda. This is after they had received the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And they were so distraught and in their humility and in receiving the blessings of Lord Chaitanya, they approached him, and they had committed so many offenses. And Prabhupada said that's the most important thing here is that you chant without offense. But they were so upset about the activities they had performed for so long. They said, and typically when you commit an offense with somebody, you need to go approach that person and apologize and ask for forgiveness, to be relieved of that offense. But they had committed so many offenses against so many people that it was impossible for them to even know who they committed offense to. So how could they go and ask forgiveness? So with this dilemma, they approached Nityananda. So Nityananda told them that you should go build a ghat, a bathing ghat, in this particular place. And then that bathing ghat, you should, in your service to all the devotees, will relieve you of this anxiety that you have, this depression that you find yourself in, and trying to relieve yourself of the offenses that you have committed. Of course, now once they got initiated, Lord Chaitanya wiped that slate clean. This is how amazing Lord Chaitanya. Even they had no worries about going to see Yamaraj, and that was even a bewildering to him of how can someone could commit so many offenses get the relief. And therefore it actually caused him also to come and see Lord Chaitanya and what was happening at this Sankirtan movement. The idea is that there has to be some kind of detachment from this material world. This is the process of devotional life, is that we have to detach ourselves from this process, the addiction we have to this material life. It's an addiction that's been birth after birth after, who knows how many times, billions of births. It's an ingrained, in-depth addiction. And to detach ourselves is not an easy thing. What's easy, it says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you change your taste. So how do we get that taste? We get that taste through sadhu sangha, that we chant the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees. This reinforcement over a period of time will eradicate this detachment that we have to material life. But it's like anything in a scientist, they perform a particular experiment in a laboratory. They know if they do it specifically a certain way, if you follow all these instructions, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you're going to get a particular result. If you deviate, the result's not going to be the same. If we follow this process, this method of worship left behind by Srila Prabhupada, if we follow it exactly how it's been prescribed, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then the result will be love of Godhead. The success is assured. That means we chant it without offenses, like Prabhupada said here. That we maintain a minimum of 16 rounds a day. Doesn't mean you don't chant more rounds a day. Maharaj often prescribes that people chant more on Ekadasi. But as your spiritual process grows, your chanting will also increase. Whether it's in chanting in kirtans, it increases in all types of different ways. Not just the prescribed rounds. 16 rounds a day is really, really, I say that, but easy. I mean, maybe, I don't know, it's some people, I'm sure it's difficult, but if you, I mean, the first time I chanted 64 rounds, the realization I got from chanting that first time I ever did it, was that about 16 rounds is nothing. I mean, 64 rounds it's a task. Not to mention what Haridas Thakur doing here is 300,000. But that was my realization. I mean, 16 rounds is very easily achieved. Even if you work a job, you can do it somehow. Even if you maybe 4 8 rounds in the morning, maybe another 4 rounds at lunch. You could actually, if you have a desire, ultimately that's what it takes. You can get through 16 rounds a day, unless you're, laid up in a hospital or some unforeseen condition. But this is the absolute essential thing. It's the foundation in which we build our Krishna conscious process on. Haridas Thakur, it described how humble and meek he was, because even he would never give it up. Even in the face of danger, he wouldn't give up his prescribed rounds when the Qazi was going to punish him and beat him in 22 marketplaces. He was never going to give up his chanting of the holy name of the Lord. That's how resolute he was in his determination to chant, that even in the face of danger, he wasn't going to abandon that. And because of that, he got the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And then it mentions here that Maya Devi herself, she came and tested, Haridas Thakur. And even before that, he was tested by another king, because he was sent a prostitute to test him. But then he made her a devotee, made her a disciple after she heard him chanting. Haridas Thakur had such a reputation in chanting the holy name of the Lord that people would come and sit and just listen to him chant. Because he would chant out loud. He didn't never chanted silently. His chanting was always out loud. And so there was stories where he'd take up residence in a cave, and this area talked about around Santipur, and he would chant, and people would just come and sit and listen. There's one story we have this snake that was inside the cave, and people would like to come and listen to Haridas Thakur, but the venomous smell and the poisonous that was coming out of this cave, it made their eyes burn, and they couldn't. So they got deterred, by their, But Haridas Thakur didn't even feel any of the symptoms of the snake's presence. Didn't even understand, he had compassion upon them, and then he said, well, then I'll just go someplace else. But then the snake left. So this was Haridas Thakur had a reputation for the quality of his chanting, and people got purified by sitting and hearing his chanting. And then here it mentions Maya Devi. Durga, she came and she tried to test Haridas. And his determination here was so strong that he even the second time, and it's indescribable to imagine what she possibly could have made herself look like to attract his mind, but could not do so. And then she took initiation from him, Harinam initiation. This is Durga who took Harinam initiation from Haridas Thakur. It's described, I think, that he actually took initiation from Advaita. This is my understanding, that Haridas Thakur took his Harinam Advaita. And he lived at Santipur, which is pretty close to Advaita, or Advaita's residence. Okay, so, and in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, a lot of these stories about Haridas Thakur, primarily they're all from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. And here we mention that the drama again. I think this is the third time, just in a very short time, that that drama that Lord Chaitanya performed, where he danced like Lakshmi Devi. Here, in that drama, Haridas Thakur was a police chief in that play. And this is, I think, the third time, just in the last, 3 or 4 classes, that this drama's come back up again. This drama is one thing about Lord Chaitanya and his chanting. In the beginning, in the house of Haridas Thakur, it was like everybody wanted to see him dance. Everybody heard the chanting, They was very loud, the chanting that they did, the kirtans they went on. It wasn't like nobody could hear it. There were people outside heard this chanting. And even at a distance they could hear the chanting because it was described as like thunder and cracking it was so loud. Even Jagai Madhai, in their intoxicated stupor, they could hear the chanting before they even got the mercy. It already had an effect on them. Unknowingly, this chanting had an effect. But they wanted to see him dance. This is what, there were quite a few people that, even though it seemed like the distractors and the agitators, the envious people had the loudest voice at the time, that we need to, they're only behind there and locking the doors because they're doing something illicit. And if somebody would say, well, no, we just don't deserve to be in there, they would chase them away. They would be angry at them for having that. So there were the people with this pious mentality that realized, that we don't belong in there. And then, but they all wanted to see the Lord dance. So it finally came about. They got people would be snuck in. Like Srivasa's mother-in-law, she wanted to see, and she hid behind a curtain, but she was found out. Lord Chaitanya knew that something was going on here. And he just couldn't get the kirtan going. He didn't want, he wasn't going to start dancing in the static, knowing there's somebody in the house. And then, of course, the devotees, they're so in tune with Lord Chaitanya, wanted him to be happy. And they don't want anything that upset Lord Chaitanya. This is their devotion. Their dedication to him is so strong, and their love for him is so strong that they didn't want any disturbances in Lord Chaitanya. And they knew this was something going on, and Srivas also searched and searched and searched for someone in the house. Then he finally found his mother-in-law. And then he gave instructions to have her drag her out of the house by her hair. That's how angry he got, because his emotions were tied up within Lord Chaitanya, that this caused a disturbance. But then he snuck somebody in, even after this incident. There was a friend of his, a Brahmin, who was a very nice Brahmin. He subsisted on raw food. He had a raw food diet, primarily milk, but he wouldn't even cook the milk. He would just take it all raw. And he was a Nastika brahmachari. It means his whole life he was a brahmachari. He never married. But he wanted to see the Lord dance. He was had a nice pious individual. And Srivas, he knew him. And so he even snuck him in the house one time. Surely he's qualified. But then it's the same thing happened. Lord Chaitanya was chanting the kirtan, and it just couldn't get it going. He knew that this person was actually in this house. And so they kept trying to get the kirtan up, get it roaring, get it going, but it just kept stopping. Lord Chaitanya kept stopping it. So something's not right, But then Srivas finally revealed to him, yes, I have brought someone into this house, but he's such a nice person. Surely he can't be the reason why. But then Lord Chaitanya knew. He said, you can't attain me by any amount of austerity. That's not how you, doesn't matter how, I can't be purchased by milk. He has to leave. They had to kick him out. So this, because he was a nice, pious person, and Srivas Thakur, this is to his benefit, he recognized this person's piety. And he got the mercy of Srivas Thakur. But he realized as he was leaving that I don't deserve to be in there. He understood that this is not, I don't deserve it. These are very exalted individuals, and I'm not at that level yet. So Lord Chaitanya understood his humility. And once he had that quality, doesn't matter, all the austerities he had was like zeros. But once he recognized that this person had the humility, that quality right there, Lord Chaitanya says he understood his mentality had changed. And they told him, go get him and bring him back, because now he's qualified. So many people wanted to see Lord Chaitanya dance, and then eventually he got the opportunity. This opportunity when he went to Kazi, he had already instructed everybody, you should chant this Hare Krishna. He told all his disciples, basically, they went out spreading around. Everybody should chant, and he'd teach people how to chant by clapping their hands. So the kirtan started independently around Navadweep, and they started growing. But the Qazi immediately started to oppress them. If he saw some other mridanga, he would break the mridanga, and he would beat up those or arrest those and cause havoc. But then Lord Chaitanya, at this point, brought his kirtan out of the house of Srivas into the public. And he said, today we'll even destroy the house of the Qazi. And then at that point, everybody was able to see, for the first time, Lord Chaitanya dancing publicly. And so his Harinam Sankirtan service in a public way began at that point. So chanting leads to chanting. More chanting. This is us. This is what we. Everything we do is revolved around this chanting. This is what clears the mirror of the heart. This chanting. It's non-different than Krishna. Krishna is dancing on our tongue. But Lord Chaitanya said, if you blaspheme a devotee, you can go on for millions of lifetimes chanting, and I will not bestow my mercy upon you. This is the one thing. If you read these, like Chaitanya Bhagavat, this is really the emphasis over and over. It's not so much the emphasis of these rules and regulations. You don't hear Lord Chaitanya talking all these other. He focuses and brings it down to one thing, and that's the blaspheming devotees. All these other things we can overcome very quickly, but that one thing is such a hindrance, and it destroys our devotional creeper, and that's what he's emphasized repeatedly. And then Prabhupada also continually that you'll show your love for me by how much you'll cooperate with each other, because it's very important. Because if you're not cooperating, then you're kind of arguing, and then this argument can lead to fault finding. Fault finding can lead to bearing false witness. That's actually Bhaktisiddhanta in the Chaitanya Bhagavat defines this blasphemy. That if you attribute a fault to someone that doesn't have that fault, that's blasphemy. So you're bearing false witness against a particular person. So you're attributing something about a person's character that's not true. So that's the mad elephant offense. So that's what we have to be careful. We have to chant our 16 rounds without this offense. This is what probably one of the most important things. Therefore, Prabhupada's mechanical chanting is not as powerful as chanting the holy names without offense. It is mechanical in a sense. We fall into this mechanical thing, especially in the beginning. And it's important, because it's mechanical, it's important that we regulate it. But the more attentive we become in that chanting and hearing the Krishna's name and associating with him directly and not indirectly, then the more effect the chanting will have in our spiritual life. Okay. Let's go to 44. Chanting is so important. So most of these verses are just Haridas Thakur. There's no end to the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur. Here I mention but a fraction of his qualities. He was so exalted that Advaita Goswami, when performing the Shraddha ceremony of his father, offered him the first plate. 45. The ways of his good qualities are like those of Prahlad Maharaj. He did not even slightly raise an eyebrow when persecuted by the Muslim ruler. After passing away of Haridas Thakur, the Lord himself took his body on his lap and danced with it in great ecstasy. Sri Vrindavan Thakur has vividly described the pastimes of Haridas in his Chaitanya Bhagavat. Whatever is remained undescribed, I shall try to explain later in this book. One sub-branch of Haridas Thakur consisted of the residents of Kuliagram. The most important among them is Satyaraj Khan, or Satyaraj Vasu, who was a recipient of all the mercy of Haridas Thakur. Purport. Satyaraj Khan was the son of Gunaraj Khan, the father of Ramananda Vasu. Haridas Thakur lived for some time during the Chaturmash period in the village named Kulia Gram, where he chanted the holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and distributed his mercy to the descendants of the Vasu family. Satyaraj Khan was allotted the service of supplying silk ropes for the Jagannath deity during the Rath Yatra festival. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answers to his inquiries about the duty of a householder devotees are vividly described in the Madhya Lila, chapters 15 and 16. The village of Kuliagram is situated 2 miles from the railway station named Jalgram on the New Cord line from Howrah to Burdwan. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very highly praised the people of Kuliagram, and he stated that even a dog of Kuliagram was very dear to him. Wow, that's mercy. 49. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Just like that Brahman, his humility is a quality we have to develop. And we can't develop it if we're blaspheming devotees. Purport. Sri Murari Gupta wrote a book called Sri Chaitanya Charita. He belonged to a Vidya physician family of Srihat, the parental home of Lord Chaitanya, and later became a resident of Navadvip. He was among the elders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya exhibited his Varaha form in the house of Murari Gupta, as described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Lila, 3rd chapter. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his Mahaprakash form, he appeared before Murari Gupta as Lord Ramchandra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu were sitting together in the house of Srivas Thakur, Murari Gupta first offered his respects to Lord Chaitanya, and then to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, however, was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore Lord Chaitanya remarked that Murari Gupta had violated social etiquette, for he should have first shown respect to Nityananda and then to him. In this way, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Murari Gupta was informed about the position of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and the next day he offered his obeisances first to Nityananda and then to Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave chewed pan or betel nut to Murari Gupta. This was after he had a dream. He left that day. Lord Chaitanya said, just go for a ride and then come back tomorrow. So that night he had a dream. And in that dream he saw that it was Lord Chaitanya came to him. And that's how he revealed to him who Nityananda was. Once, since Shivananda Sain offered food to Lord Chaitanya that had been cooked with excessive ghee, the next day the Lord became sick and went to Murari Gupta for treatment. Lord Chaitanya accepted some water from the water pot of Murari Gupta, and thus he was cured. The natural remedy for indigestion is to drink a little water, and since Murari Gupta was a physician, he gave the Lord some drinking water and cured him. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the house of Srivas Thakur in his Chaturabhuj Murti, Murari Gupta became the carrier in the form of Garuda. And in these pastimes of ecstasy, the Lord got up on his back. It was the desire of Murari Gupta to leave his body before the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Lord forbid him to do so. This is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanta, chapter 20. He had a chopper. He got a chopper, like a knife. He was going to kill himself. What are you going to hack yourself to death? But Lord Chaitanya knew he had this, and he had it hidden. And then Lord Chaitanya made him give him that, and chastise him. And there are others, like Sanatana Goswami wanted to end his life too, and Lord Chaitanya, that you belong to me. It's not your decision to make these things, You've surrendered yourself to me. I have plans for you. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one day appeared in ecstasy in the Vrahamurti, Murari Gupta offered him prayers. He was a great devotee of Lord Ramchandra, and his staunch devotion is vividly described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila, 15th chapter, verse 137 through 157. Text 50. Any questions? Anything? Any comments? Text 50. Translation. Srila Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings. It should be noted that a grihasta householder must not make his livelihood by begging from anyone. Every householder of the higher caste should engage himself in his own occupational duty as a Brahmin, Kshatriya, or Vaishya. But he should not engage in the service of others, for this is the duty of a Sudra. One should simply accept whatever he earns by his own profession. The engagements of a Brahmin are yagna, patana, dana, and pratigarva. A Brahmin should be a worshipper of Vishnu, and he should always instruct others how to worship him. A Kshatriya can become a landholder and earn his livelihood by levying taxes or collecting rent from tenants. A Vaishya can accept agricultural or general trade as an occupational duty. Since Murari Gupta was born in a physician's family, he practiced as a physician, and with whatever income he earned, he maintained his family. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, everyone should try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the execution of his occupational duty. That is the perfection of life. This system is called Daivi Varnashram. Murari Gupta was an ideal grihasta, for he was a great devotee of Lord Ramchandra and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By practicing as a physician, he maintained his family and at the same time satisfied Lord Chaitanya to the best of his ability. This is the idea of a householder life. So, what? What? A physician was he in? What Varna? I don't know, a physician. I mean, you're independent and you serve, but I think the point he didn't accept money from anyone. But that's what? Brahman Varna. Okay. Yeah. Typically, they perform the service first, and then they get paid based on the service. Typically, now it's different. Yeah. Yeah. You do it, okay. As a physician, is a voluntary service. Okay, whether you get paid or not, that's your point. You do the position. Even a teacher, the guru, you teach, and then at the end you get dakshin. You get paid. Of course, here it points out that a Kshatriya, he takes, he don't ask. Taxes. He levies a tax. This is what that's what you owe me. Or the landlord, this is what you pay the rent to pay here. It's not a negotiation. I mean, it could be, but it's primarily that's their. And then the Sudras they're employees. I remember even I took a business class in college. I remember the terminology was like master-slave, even in business, to define the legal relationship of an employer and an employee. Obviously, it's probably not that's been a long time ago when I went to college, but I don't think they probably clean that up a little bit now, that language. But it defines the relationship, the employee and employer. And that's, if you can avoid that, it's best you can avoid it. Try to find out some occupation here that it's kind of, even nowadays, we have two householders now both working. The women's independence movement, they said, they kind of encourage people not to be subservient to your family, but be independent. So instead of becoming subservient to your family, you go out and get a job, and you become subservient to the employer who tells you what time you're to show up, what time you're allowed to leave, what you're allowed to wear, what you're allowed to say, and they think that's independence. I didn't hear you. Yeah. So that's it. They think that's the independence. Prabhupada made also an analogy that when they were under the rule of the Britain, people worked in different departments. You know, your job was a Department of Finance, whatever. You're a clerk here, and then they just changed. They got their independence, and now the Indians at the time ruled things. But the clerk, his life didn't change at all. He was still a subservient of the finance department. So the master might have changed, but his life didn't change at all. And there was really no independence. But I think here is most of these others are twice born, where Sudras are typically considered the first human birth, and they're stuck in that situation. Of course, now everybody's a Sudra, born in Kali. Primarily, there's some Vaishyas, but almost entirely Sudras. Anything else to anybody? Well, I don't know if it creates that designation, because in society, people aren't relating to everybody. There is a class. I mean, you see it even now in a little bit. There's a little bit of a class, primarily due to wealth. So they see a difference between, but it has nothing to do with varnas, one's nature. Of course, it's all karma. That disparity was, karma. Yeah. The Sankirtan doesn't, just as I was saying, the Sankirtan does not discriminate against any class. Everybody's can benefit from hearing a Sankirtan. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to read another one because it has a purport. We stop at 51. Anything else? Okay. We have to, ultimately it's like the very first was chanting. This is what we have to spread. Even this Varnashram, Prabhupada said that we should just follow Lord Chaitanya's formula. He said second half of his mission was Varnashram. But at one point, in the Chaitanya chart, I think it's where he said that we should just forget this Varnashram and just chant Hare Krishna. Follow Lord Chaitanya's formula. Publicly we chant Hare Krishna. That's the formula. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Govindam Adi Purusha